continuing on with kind of a pivot in my content and really trying to focus around some stuff that's happening with the coronavirus and COVID-19 and trying to make sure that I'm kind of getting to talk to a lot of the people, the owner operators, the people that are kind of seeing this from the ground level and kind of getting their opinion and trying to find different unique kind of situations in the market. I wanted to bring on Russell Sachs, that is the co-founder and CEO of Campus Protein. And I think this is an interesting person for me to kind of talk to because he is very much focused on e-commerce, and because of that, he's a little bit more insulated, I think, than maybe some people that in the supplement space that are working with brick and mortar retailers, small brick and mortar retailers. But if you guys didn't pick up from the Campus Protein name, a lot of his business is with college kids, and college is kind of not in session right now. So there's a lot of things that are kind of working from both sides that I thought would be interesting to kind of talk with Russell and kind of see what he's seeing on his side. Do you want to kind of share, I guess, for people that maybe don't know too much about Campus Protein, about you, Sure. kind of that story, just kind of share a little bit about that so people can get a little bit of a base of what's going on?
Yeah. So Campus Protein, we sell majority third-party products targeting college students. And I started the business when I was in college at Indiana University. We were fortunate enough to win a Shark Tank style business competition, won a little bit of seed funding from successful IU alumni, and really took that money and kind of bootstrapped from there and grew it to, now we're at a couple hundred college campuses. We got a couple thousand reps at those colleges. And, for us, our bread and butter is college students and knowing that market and knowing those students. And for us, nobody was really focusing on that specific demographic. And the, original thesis essentially is that no one's focusing on kind of a huge market. College students are either, they're going to class, maybe they're going out and partying and they're working out. So they've got a lot of free time on their hands. So in essence, that's what we do. We sell protein vitamin supplements. We have our own private line as well. And we target college students.
Where are you located at? You're in New York City, right?
Yeah. I feel like we're at the epicenter of this thing. It's definitely, I've lived in New York my whole life, except for going to school in Indiana. It's definitely feels a little bit like a movie. I've never seen in my life Manhattan just totally dead. Walk into the office, seeing two people on the street. Those people are wearing, head to toe like coverage, wearing masks, and seeing them build, makeshift hospitals in Central Park and stuff like that. It's just, stuff that you think you would only see in a movie, pretty much. Yeah. And it's definitely scary because it's kind of, what comes next after this? What are kind of some of those next stages right now? People seem pretty fearful to be outside.
In New York, like in terms of interruptions to business on your side, are you seeing anything? I mean, you guys are pretty like a virtual team anyways. I know you guys have a small team in New York City, but you guys can operate, totally remote, correct?
For sure. Yeah, we 100% can. There's definitely an adjustment for doing something like that. I mean, it's, when you're in an office environment, it's nice to be able to, stick your head out the window and say, what's going on with this, or, set up a quick meeting in the conference room, whatever it is. So there's definitely a bit of an adjustment on the communication side. But yeah, we've adjusted pretty quickly. And again, we're a small team, so we've been fortunate in that the adjustment's been pretty seamless, but it's definitely an adjustment.
What have you guys been doing from like adjustments with being that now colleges are pretty much shut down at this point? So you mentioned around having, a big team of on-campus kind of reps. Yep. Are you communicating with them and kind of creating some plans about how do they kind of communicate with some of the customers in that way? I mean, what are you kind of seeing from that, and what are you guys planning for? Do you think, schools kind of are going to start back up in the fall, or, is this something that you might want to kind of plan for a little bit longer period?
No, it's a great question. We like to typically take a pretty conservative approach. So we're going to assume for the time being that schools will not reopen. And to your point, we're going to have to make some pivots in order to make sure things continue the way that they are. And what's interesting for us is, we're we're on track for our best year yet, which we're super thankful for. But there was a good chunk of time there where it seemed like things were definitely not going to go that way anymore. So we were having our spring break sale, which is one of our biggest sales of the year. We do a ton of business in this 1 week period. And by Wednesday, Thursday of the sale, we had been up triple digits on that sale year over year, and just out of nowhere, totally flatlined as the whole coronavirus situation was taking off. So for us, we're like, is this kind of the beginning of, a huge downturn in sales falling off a cliff and all that stuff? And I think what ultimately happened was it was just kind of an adjustment period of college students going back home and leaving school. And for us, transitional times are always down times, whether it's leaving school and going on some sort of vacation or going home for summer break. Those transitional times are typically dips for us. So we saw that dip, but in the past week and a half, we're back in growth mode. So for us, we're obviously super thankful for it. But the really interesting thing is that it's more of our loyal customer base and coming back and doing more frequent purchases, and the velocity has picked up, and it's not necessarily new people coming. And I think that it's probably a pretty tough environment to acquire new customers and get them to spend their disposable income in a time that's uncertain and scary on something they've never heard of before. So that's something we're going to need to tackle. For us also, the summer had been a pain point for us. College students are going home. In previous years, and a big goal of ours had always been, let's figure out a way that we can make sure the summer months are just as solid as the school year. And that had been something that we had been working on for a long time. So essentially for us now, it's okay. That's essentially going to be all year long. So let's pivot to that model as quickly as possible for the time being.
Your guys' business is interesting because of the spring break element. I mean, obviously sports nutrition as a whole usually ramps up around the first of the year you get a lot of people on the New Year's resolution, and you kind of, people are pumped up and ready to make those changes in their lifestyles. But this becomes a little bit more predominant for college kids because of the spring break aspect. And then this year, it kind of got interrupted because a lot of people were obviously a little bit fearful of what was going on. People saw, some of the bad things that were happening with college kids kind of just being nonchalant in their attitude about how serious everything was. And that's not to really fault them. I mean, if I transport myself back to when I was in college, I honestly, I can't say that I wouldn't be as nonchalant as them. I'm insulated in my own world. You know what I mean? I'm very much in my own world. But, you guys have taken, in terms of like your marketing, voice, like all that type of thing has been very much like spoken to college kids in the way that they kind of communicate. But I have noticed that you guys obviously are not going in that direction. You guys are very much staying probably more PC than you normally would in this situation. Was that a conscious decision to make sure that you guys weren't like being tone deaf or anything?
No, you're 100% right. That's exactly what it was. And on that example, yesterday was April Fool's Day, and that's a pretty big thing for us. And we usually do something around that, but we made the decision, we had everything planned out to not move forward with that because, we don't want to be tone deaf. We want to take into consideration the environment around us and what's going on. And it just did not seem appropriate. So we're definitely making decisions based on what's going on and taking that into consideration as well. So yeah, we've definitely toned some stuff back. We want to be conscious of what people are going through now living at home. And that for us is something that's super important.
Yeah, I actually put out an article yesterday around April Fool's, just because forever, like I've been kind of a Scrooge in the sense of like April Fool's. I mean, I work with a lot of brands and they always want to throw ideas around, we want to do this thing. And, and they're always cringy at best. You know what I mean? There's some that have been really good, but for the most part on my side, I just kind of just breeze right over April Fool's and I just go straight on to April 2nd and don't really worry about it. But what I found myself yesterday when I woke up, I went straight to Instagram and I was looking for brands to provide some humor because, being that now I don't have the gym. I don't have sports. I don't have all these things that normally like distract me a little bit during my super serious professional life. I was looking for some brands in my space to be like really kind of do some interesting things. And that's me probably just being a little bit optimistic in the sense that I always kind of don't really take them all that seriously. But what I looked at and what I kind of noticed in terms of brands where a lot of them kind of use the same strategies used, like, let's just be kind of quiet. Or if they did do something, it was very much kind of just relaxed or very much like pop culture-ish, like a lot of people I saw doing things around like the Tiger King or something like that, where
Yeah.
like something where like the conversation was already going in that direction, so it's easy for you to kind of do something like that, and you didn't feel like you were taking too hard of a risk and you were going to look kind of wrong. But for me, it was a little bit interesting because I thought, oh man, I would have loved to have a nice little laugh or two yesterday. I
You
think we could all
wanted a nice
use.
uplifting joke.
Yeah, I could use a little bit of. I think everybody could use a little bit of laughter, a little bit of entertainment right now, and it was unfortunate that kind of everybody did not do that. I totally get it from a strategist. I'm like, your downside's definitely a lot higher than where your potential upside was for doing that. But
Didn't seem like a
that
great risk reward. Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely something I saw on my side. I was like, dang, okay, well, it is what it is. Something to kind of bring up, you mentioned around like the summer aspect and, trying to plan for that now. And that's been on your kind of map for a while to kind of try to overcome
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now that you kind of have a little bit, I don't want to say you definitely don't have more time, but you have different time in the sense of how to approach things, because this gives you the opportunity to kind of relook at the business and say where can we strengthen this up, because we don't really know what normal will be when we return. I think a lot of people, every conversation I've had over the last couple of weeks is like somebody in some sense paraphrases like, I can't wait to get back to when things were normal, like my normal routine or whatever. But my thought is, I don't know if we go back to normal. I don't know if the same normal will be
I
what
agree with
we're
you. I don't
expecting.
think, yeah, I don't think we just spring back to, we flip a switch and everything's back to the way it was. I think people will be somewhat uh, fearful to do certain things. And I think it's going to take a while to get things back in motion, especially on the traveling side and anything kind of along those industries, anything with travel in the name. So I think that will be tough. I think it's going to be a slow comeback. And I mean, in business, obviously, one of the biggest things is trying to figure out how to overcome different obstacles, how to be creative. And to your point, I do think it presents an opportunity because you're at this point now where you have to be creative. And this is potentially one of those times where you come up with some of the most creative ideas that you wouldn't have, but you are just based on pure circumstances.
In my mind, I constantly am thinking about like the idea that frugality is like the ultimate form of creativity. And I say that a lot to people, and they kind of always just be like, yeah, you are cheap, but it's a mindset in the sense of like, I like to put in constraints into my life constantly because it makes me be creative. And I use that in a
Yeah.
business sense all the time with my clients, because I'm telling them like, things are not going to always be perfect. It's not always going to be Goldilocks. The last 11 years of our lives have pretty much been Goldilocks from a business perspective. If you throw a dart against a wall, you are going to hit some opportunity over the last
Yep.
11 years. Now, that's not the case anymore. And this is the time when these constraints shouldn't really like debilitize you. It should be like, how do I get around this, over it, through it, whatever that is? How do I figure this out? And it's going to take the teams, the sound business people on the teams to like really come up with some, creative solutions to kind of some of the problems. So are you guys like as a team, I know your leadership team, like, are you guys like having a lot more of those like high level conversations right now, like really trying to get towards some of the strategic realignments and saying like, all right,
Yeah.
well, let's kind of look at this.
So, I mean, granted, these are totally unprecedented times, and I don't think anyone has ever accounted for a full economic stop. So, but for our business specifically, we've never been through a recessionary time. So this is new for us. It's new for a lot of people because, again, it's totally unprecedented and a full economic stop is never truly accounted for. But for us, we are thinking about, we have a backlog of, on the private line side for Campus Protein, products that we're planning on releasing throughout the year, and now trying to re-strategize and saying, okay, does it make sense to still go off of this roadmap? Do things need to be adjusted? And again, without really having a concrete end in sight, it's tough to make those calls, and it's tough to know how things will be perceived by our customers. The interesting thing about college students, and one of the reasons, I mean, we love the market is, besides the fact that it's a pretty big market, college students generally set trends. What they start doing is it's kind of a trickle effect. So what we've started seeing is they're adapting pretty quickly to this new life, so to speak, and doing home workouts, and we are trying to change just as quickly with them in order to meet whatever those needs are. So for us, we just want to keep our eye on the ball. We're fortunate in that we have all these campus reps across the country, whether they're actually on campus or now at home. They're kind of our ear on the ground to say, okay, kind of what is the new thing that people are doing? Because what was cool in college for me is totally different than what's cool in college now. So it changes very quickly. And I think that, again, going back to opportunities, even outside the supplement space, I think this is going to create a huge acceleration in so many different industries that eventually would have gotten there, but this is just going to take them so much faster, whether it is pharmacies on demand or cloud-based software, and potentially a whole new working from home business. I mean, I really think that working from home may be like a real thing for a lot of businesses after this. So,
yeah, just before we jumped on, I was watching an interview with the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and he was basically talking around how work from home might become more of a reality. And you think about their business, that's very much like, not a work from home type of a situation. And,
totally.
And you think about a company of that size trying to make those decisions after the fact. You talked again around some of the campus reps. Have you started to really deploy some of them from, maybe creating some different content, or, are you guys just letting them kind of run with whatever kind of messaging and stuff they want to put out to try to get close to their kind of core customers? Or are you guys starting to utilize some of them maybe to create some different content that you normally wouldn't? How are you guys kind of adjusting with that?
So for us, I mean, and then again, the big thing for our business has always been that person-to-person contact. And we consider ourselves really like a virtual retail store, because you have the person who is on the ground with you, helping you choose products that are best for your specific goals. Without the actual store, we're going to get it to you within 1 or 2 business days. So that entire person-to-person contact's gone. So we've definitely made a major shift towards social and communicating, whether it's via DM or via email, and leveraging some of, we're pretty big on tech, and we've built a lot of stuff in-house for communication for campus reps. So, pivoting more towards reliance on that. And it goes against, unfortunately, a big part of the campus reps training is that person-to-person salesmanship and building relationships with people in person, because there's almost nothing that comes close to that type of sale when you can actually have a true relationship with somebody, whether it's a business relationship, or whether they're your friend or colleague, or someone your gym buddy, whatever it is. That trust factor is inherently then built in, so it's a very organic and natural sale. And that's something that we've always believed, and we've always stood behind, and it's always been the foundation. So that part is extremely different for us now, because there is no, unless you're doing stuff like this all the time, or you're doing Zoom conferences, which our campus reps aren't doing, that it makes it tough. So we're trying to adapt as fast as possible. We're also trying to see from, again, just kind of our guys on the ground, what are some of the things that are working. We don't want to kind of, throw the kitchen sink in it and kind of see what sticks, because we want to be strategic in keeping the messaging consistent, and we don't want to go too far off of that strategic messaging. So we're trying to learn as fast as we can, but also be cautious.
Do you think, I mean, you talked about some of like the loyalty around how quick the business has kind of rebounded off of that, like on super uncertain time where like college kids were getting sent home and, they're basically saying campus is shut down, you're going to have to go back to your home and everything. Are you think some of that's attributed to the relationships they do have with some of the reps in town? Because I think a lot of times we don't think about a small business owner as like the local ambassador that's getting 10% cut or something off of the sale of something, but honestly that's their small business, that's their connection that they have, and that's how they make their money. And if you're friends with that person or you have some type of connection with them, whatever level that is, you still want to support your local businesses. That might not be what we traditionally think of a small business or local business as, but a college kid to a college kid, that is the way that person's going to be able to survive the next semester on their cash or whatever. Are you seeing like any of that? Have you talked to any of like the campus reps and like they're seeing any of that?
I mean, to your point, that's exactly how we want our campus reps to approach their core customer group. It is like them running their own business. When their customers think of Campus Protein, they think of that person, they think of that rep. So they are our true representation on the ground. So, we've tried as hard as we can to instill that as part of the training. And that's, one of the foundations that we're built off of, is that these guys are the face of the company on the ground. So, that's definitely one piece of it, are those relationships and having those. We're lucky that there are such strong relationships with campus reps, and they have that type of loyalty to whether it's their friends or somebody on their school sports team, whatever that may be. And then I think the other piece of it is, for us, we've always wanted to figure out creative ways to build a really strong and sticky customer base. And one of the ways we did that was about a few years ago now, we rolled out something called CP Select, which is unlimited free shipping for the customer, where they can pay $50 up front for the year, get unlimited free shipping, and then a couple other perks and benefits as well. So if you're a college student and you've spent $50, you're probably not going to shop with anyone else but us. So that has also helped a ton. Those people are shopping, on average, on a regular year, those people will buy, 2.5, 3 times as much as somebody who doesn't have it. And we've seen those numbers almost double during this time. So those people are being extremely loyal to us, and we're really grateful for that. So it's definitely scary, though, because it's hard to say, is this a fluke? Is this going to be only for a short period of time? Or is this kind of the new reality? And again, on the customer acquisition side, that's tough to do right now. That's tough to do in this environment. So there's a lot of unknowns, I think, still, and taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, no, I've mentioned a few times to some of my clients and saying that this isn't really the environment where you're going to get a substantial amount of new customers, unless you're in some like crazy category that's in such high demand that people are switching and they're not brand loyal, and you might be able to grab some new customers. I don't know for the long haul, but I tell them, though it might not be the time to acquire a bunch of customers, it's definitely the time to lose a bunch of customers. So you have to really kind of dig into the retention piece of this. You mentioned around like just the kind of way that your guys are set up. I'm interested if you guys are seeing anything with maybe like Amazon not being able to ship certain items. I know that like supplements are generally considered in the essential category to them, but even if you go on and you're expecting to get your normal, 1 or 2 day free shipping, they're putting out shipping windows much longer than that because they're trying to figure out capacity and labor issues and things of that nature. Are you guys seeing anything like that on your side? Or your guys' ship times the same?
So the only thing that we sell on Amazon's our private line products. So Campus Protein Carnitine, Fuel pre-workout, and we are seeing a pretty big backlog of unshipped orders. And me personally, I mean, I bought a bunch of stuff, or attempted to buy a bunch of stuff on Amazon recently, and saw that the ship window was, sometime end of April, beginning of May, and I just canceled that. So Yeah, I think that businesses who are Amazon reliant are going to have a lot of trouble as well because, to your point, they're only really shipping essentials and they're prioritizing that over anything else.
Now
So,
with the
yeah.
CP Select though, like, are you seeing people lean on that a little bit heavier now because you guys are not seeing the same issues? Because you guys are pretty
We've seen a
well
slight uptick
situated.
in,
Yeah.
yeah, we've seen a slight uptick in new memberships for that, but they're not necessarily new customers. They're people who have been customers previously who hadn't signed up to that program yet.
Mm.
And we are seeing, we offer two versions of that program. One, you can pay $50 annually, and the other option is $5 a month. So a $5 a month one is, far exceeding that one-time $50. Because again, I think it goes back to people being uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen in the next month, or even, at this point, next day or week or whatever. So I think that there's so much uncertainty, and definitely some kind of fear instilled in people on just whatever the unknown is.
Touch on one thing before we jump off here. You mentioned around private label, and there's one that you just launched before this kind of all started to happen with the coronavirus with Beam, and I know that it has a kind of a unique story. So I wanted you to kind of explain that a little bit, because I don't know if I knew it fully until you guys released that video, and then it all kind of brought everything close to home, and I was like, wow, this needs to definitely get some legs out there, because I think it's a really unique story.
Well, no, I appreciate you bringing it up. And we obviously sell a lot of third-party products on Campus Protein, and for us, we had always wanted to create a premium supplement brand that was totally separate from Campus Protein, but leveraging all of the knowledge and data that we have on what sells well and where the market's going. And for us, since the college market really is kind of the forefront in sending trends, we have an advantage in figuring out kind of where the market's going from that regard. So it was something we'd wanted to do for a while, and actually about 2 years ago had set out to do it, a little over 2 years ago. And unfortunately, my business partner, Mike Udell, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a rare form of cancer. And what he thought and what we thought was going to be, and from what the doctors had told him and what we had heard, is that it was a pretty quick turnaround. They had caught it super early. But unfortunately, his body was just not super receptive to the chemotherapy. So he went through a bunch of different chemo treatments and ultimately a stem cell transplant, and then a new chemotherapy that really went on to put him in remission and save his life. And that chemotherapy was called Beam. And that's where the name of the brand came from, Beam, which stands for Be Amazing. And everything we do around that brand has to do with pro change. And I mean, he was taking supplements through this process, and whether it was mass gainers to make sure he wasn't losing weight, or pre-workout for energy because he was so low on energy levels, we wanted to put out products that truly represented ultra premium, and somebody who was in, first of all, no one should ever at any age go through something like that, especially at his age. It's so shocking. And so for us, we wanted to make sure that everything we put out was of the highest quality, and something that kind of no matter what situation you were in, you can feel comfortable taking.
When I was watching that video, and I didn't know Mike all that well over these last couple of years. I knew of him, and I know we've communicated a few times, but didn't know him all that well. And obviously, because I didn't know him all that well, I didn't notice a lot of things that he was going through. And when I watched that, everything kind of came full circle, because I've big on preaching like how important the founding story is of things. And, a lot of times what's in the entrepreneur's head a lot of times never gets out to people like fully. Like there's a reason why somebody started the businesses they started, and it usually is in the head, and it maybe was somehow communicated in different ways over the last, how many years the business has been around, but it's never fully conceptualized in a way that like becomes powerful to create some I guess, like galvanize people around something, and that they can kind of bring that to light. And I really enjoyed that video. It was a simple video, but it was one of those things where I think it was put together in a way that made everybody understand what the brand was about. So I wanted to make sure that people could at least hear a little bit about that story, because
Appreciate
I
it.
think that I think it's one that obviously you guys launched it during this time, and this is a challenging time, but it's kind of, honestly, it's perfect for the brand in the sense of like the core of what it's all about. Mike went through
That's
those times, and so when you guys come out of this, it's probably going to be even a stronger kind of brand because of all that. If people are not too aware of you guys, how can they follow you, get a
yeah.
hold of you?
Yeah, on the Campus Protein side, campusprotein.com, at Campus Protein for any social media handle. And on the Beam, the amazing side, the website is youcanbeam.com. And same thing for all the social handles, YOUCANBEAM.
Appreciate it, Russell. I know you went through the apocalypse to try to get in the office to talk today. So
Yeah,
stay safe, and good luck with getting through all this.
no, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.